The sound of his voice cut through the ballroom like someone had slammed a door. "If you dance this tango with me, I'll marry you right here in front of everyone." The room went quiet. People turned. Glasses stopped halfway to their lips. The orchestra froze. Alejandro Vega stood in the middle of the floor, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of champagne. He looked amused, the kind of amused that meant he was testing someone. Across the room, near the buffet table, Camila Torres stood with a tray of glasses. Her fingers tightened around it before she even realized what he'd said. At first, she thought she'd misheard. Then she saw the way everyone was looking at her, waiting for her to react. Phones were already up. Someone whispered, "He's talking to her." Camila straightened her back. "Excuse me." Alejandro pointed directly at her. "You, the one pretending not to hear me. Come on, dance with me a tango. I'll make you a princess for one night." A few people laughed out loud. One woman clapped her hands together like she was watching a comedy show. Camila's face went pale. She looked toward her manager, Sofia Delgado, who stood frozen near the bar and shook her head slightly, as if to say don't make it worse. Alejandro smiled wider. "What's wrong? Don't tell me you're shy. It's only a dance." Camila spoke quietly but clearly. "I'm working, sir." He took a slow sip from his glass. "And I'm giving you a better job for the next 3 minutes." Laughter again. Someone said, "He's unbelievable," and another answered, "That's Vega for you." Camila felt her chest tightening. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "You're making a scene." "That's the point," he said. "Everyone loves a show." She looked down, trying to breathe evenly. One of the waiters brushed past her and whispered, "Just walk away, Camila." She almost did. Then Alejandro spoke again, louder this time, making sure no one could miss it. "What's the matter? You don't know how to tango? Or maybe you're afraid?" That hit harder than she expected. The laughter that followed felt like heat on her skin. She looked around, so many faces smiling at her humiliation, enjoying it. She set the tray down on a nearby table. The glasses clinked together, loud enough to silence a few people. Sophia started moving toward her. "Camila, please." Camila didn't look back. "It's fine." She walked slowly toward Alejandro. The sound of her shoes on the marble floor was sharp, steady. The crowd quieted again, a different kind of attention now. When she stopped a few feet away, she said, "You think this is funny?" He tilted his head. "I think it's entertainment. Don't you? I think you're used to people saying yes because they're afraid to tell you no." That made a few people shift uncomfortably. Alejandro's smile faded for just a second. "Careful, Miss Torres. You might regret talking to me like that." "Maybe," she said, "but at least I won't regret staying silent." The orchestra conductor stood awkwardly, waiting. Alejandro glanced at him and said, "Play something slow. Let's make it official." "No," Camila said, before he could turn away. He blinked. "No. You wanted a reaction," she said quietly. "Now you have one. That's all you get." A woman near the front muttered, "She's done for." Alejandro tried to recover his smirk. "Relax. I was joking." "No, you weren't," she said. "You just didn't expect me to answer." That line landed heavier than anything she'd said before. The laughter that had filled the room was gone. What replaced it was an uncomfortable stillness. Sophia stood at the edge of the crowd, her face tense, eyes darting between them. "Camila, please come back here." Camila didn't move. She looked straight at Alejandro. "You think you can embarrass people because you have money. But all you did tonight was show them what kind of man you are." Alejandro's jaw tightened. For the first time, he looked unsure of himself. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but you will too." Someone near the back clapped once, mocking, trying to break the tension. Wow, the waitress talks back. Alejandro forced a smile, trying to turn it into a joke again. "All right, everyone, that's enough excitement. Let's enjoy the party." Camila didn't laugh. "You call me out in front of everyone, Mr. Vega. You wanted attention. You got it. Now I'm going back to work." She turned around, picked up her tray, and walked away through the center of the ballroom. No one spoke. No one stopped her. Even the orchestra didn't start playing again until she was gone. Alejandro stayed in the middle of the floor, glass still in hand, staring after her. For the first time that night, he didn't look powerful, just exposed. The ballroom didn't recover right away. People tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out wrong. Forced, nervous. A few guests turned their backs, pretending to talk about something else. Others couldn't stop whispering. The tension hung over the room like smoke that wouldn't clear. Camila pushed through the service door and into the hallway behind the ballroom. The noise faded, replaced by the hum of refrigerators and the rattle of plates. Her hands were still shaking. She set the tray down on a counter and leaned forward, trying to catch her breath. Elena Vargas, another server, came up beside her. "What the hell was that?" "He called me out in front of everyone," Camila said, voice low but steady. "I wasn't going to just stand there." Elena shook her head. "You could have ignored him. You know how these people are. They'll forget you exist by tomorrow." "I don't think he will." Before Elena could answer, Sofia Delgado walked in. Her face was pale and tight, her hands clasped behind her back like she was holding in her anger. "Camila, I need to talk to you." "Now." Camila stood straight. "I know what you're going to say." "No, you don't," Sofia snapped. "You just humiliated one of the most powerful men in Madrid. In his own hotel." Camila didn't flinch. "He humiliated me first." Sofia lowered her voice. "That's not how it works. You think anyone in that room cares about who started it? They'll remember the server who talked back, not the man who insulted her." Elena stepped in. "Come on, Sofia. She didn't do anything wrong." Sofia cut her off. "You stay out of this. You both have jobs because people like him decide where the money goes. Do you understand what that means?" Camila looked at her manager for a long second. "Yeah, it means if we let people like him talk to us like that, we'll always stay where we are." Sofia's eyes softened for just a second, but she didn't show it. "I'm not saying he was right. I'm saying he can destroy you, and I can't stop it if he decides to." Camila didn't answer. She picked up a cloth and started wiping the edge of the counter, more to calm her hands than to clean anything. Sofia sighed, rubbing her temples. "He'll expect an apology. Probably tonight. I'll try to talk to him first, but you need to stay out of sight until I say so." Camila froze. "You want me to apologize?" "I want to keep you employed," Sofia said. Elena crossed her arms. "You're serious?" "I'm trying to protect her," Sofia said. "You think I like this?" "But you don't win fights like that by being loud." Camila put the cloth down. "I don't need her protection if it means pretending nothing happened." Sofia's tone softened. "Camila, please. I've worked in this place 15 years. I've seen what happens when staff forget their place. He won't just be angry tonight. He'll remember your name next week, next month. You'll never work in another hotel in this city again." Camila stared at the floor. Maybe that's a good thing. Sofia opened her mouth, then stopped. She turned and walked toward the door. "If anyone asks, you're sick. Don't leave this hallway." When she was gone, Elena leaned on the counter beside Camila. "You know she means well, right?" "I know, but she's also scared like all of us." Camila nodded. "I'm not angry at her." She looked down at her hands, steady now. "I'm angry that he thought it was normal to do that." Elena gave a small, humorless laugh. "Normal's the right word. That's what's messed up." They stood in silence for a few seconds, the distant hum of the ballroom coming through the wall. Music again, glasses clinking, polite laughter. The party had moved on. Camila turned toward the sound. "He's pretending it didn't happen." Elena said, "That's what they do. They erase you by acting like it was nothing." Camila wiped her palms on her apron. "Then maybe I won't let them." Elena frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not hiding." "Camila." But Camila was already walking toward the service door. She pushed it open a few inches and saw the ballroom again. Alejandro Vega stood near the center, surrounded by his usual circle: politicians, investors, women in dresses that cost more than she earned in a year. He was laughing, loud and careless, as if nothing had happened. The sight made her stomach twist. She turned back to Elena. "He gets to laugh about it, and I get told to stay quiet. How is that fair?" "It's not," Elena said. "But it's how things are." Camila didn't argue. She knew Elena wasn't wrong. But she also knew she couldn't just walk away this time. Something about the way the crowd had laughed, like she wasn't a person, just part of the entertainment, had flipped a switch she couldn't turn off. She closed the door slowly, her voice calm but certain. "He wanted a show. He's going to get one." Elena stared at her. "What are you planning?" Camila picked up her tray again, adjusted the glasses, and said quietly, "I'm not sure yet, but I'm not done." Elena watched her walk back toward the ballroom entrance, her figure half lit by the glow from inside. And for the first time that night, she wasn't sure whether to be afraid for her friend or for the man who had laughed at her. Camila walked back into the ballroom with the tray in her hands, acting like she'd just returned from the kitchen, but the room shifted the moment people saw her. Conversations dipped, laughter softened, and every pair of eyes followed her across the floor. She didn't look at them. She went straight to the long table by the center pillars and started replacing empty glasses like nothing had happened. Alejandro Vega stood a few meters away, his suit jacket undone, drink in hand, surrounded by people who were pretending to enjoy themselves. When he saw her, his smile froze for a second. He tried to play it off. "Well, look who's back," he said loudly enough for everyone near him to hear. "Couldn't stay away from the spotlight, huh?" Camila didn't look up. "I'm just doing my job." "Sure," he said, smirking. "Though if you keep talking like that, you might end up famous. Half the city's probably watching that video by now." The people around him laughed softly, unsure whether they should. Camila turned to him, calm but firm. "That video isn't a joke to me, Mr. Vega. You made me a spectacle." He tilted his head. "You walked right into it." "No, you dragged me into it." Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried. Guests nearby stopped talking. The tension came back fast, like it had been waiting. Alejandro took a step closer. "You think I owe you an apology?" "I don't care what you think you owe me," she said. "I care that you understand what you did." He laughed once, dry and hard. "You're lecturing me now? Over a dance." "It wasn't about a dance." "Then what was it about?" he said, raising his voice. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone because I made a joke." Camila stared at him. "You embarrassed yourself." The air seemed to thicken. A few guests moved away, pretending to check their phones but staying close enough to hear. Alejandro took another sip of his drink, trying to hold his composure. "You think you can talk to me like we're equals?" Camila didn't blink. "I don't think about that. I just talk like a person who's tired of being treated like furniture." Someone at a nearby table murmured, "She's got a point." Alejandro turned toward the voice. "You all enjoy this, don't you? The show?" Then back to Camila. "You think you're some kind of hero now?" "No," she said quietly. "I think I'm someone you didn't expect to answer back." He laughed again, louder, trying to shake it off, but his voice cracked slightly. "You don't know who you're talking to." "I know exactly who you are," she said. "You're the man who thinks the room belongs to him because no one ever told him otherwise." That line landed like a slap. The crowd didn't laugh. No one moved. Sophia appeared near the entrance, her face pale. She tried to catch Camila's eye, mouthing something like "Stop now," but it was too late. Alejandro set his glass down, his tone changing. "Listen to me carefully. You're not winning anything here. All these people will go home, and tomorrow they'll forget your name. But me? I'll still be the one running this place." Camila nodded slowly. "That's the problem." He frowned. "What? That you think running a place means owning everyone in it?" For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then one of the guests near the stage said, "She's right." Another voice joined, nervous but firm. "You went too far, Alejandro." Alejandro looked around, realizing the laughter wasn't with him anymore. "You people are unbelievable," he muttered. Camila picked up her tray again, not rushing, not hiding. "You wanted attention," she said. "Now you have it. I hope it feels worth it." He took a small step toward her. "You're done here." She looked him in the eye. "Maybe, but you are too." Alejandro's jaw tightened. "You think I'll lose anything from this?" "I don't know," she said simply. "That depends on whether people in this room remember what they saw or pretend they didn't." The silence that followed felt heavier than the music that had filled the ballroom earlier. Sophia finally walked over, putting a hand on Camila's arm. "Let's go," she whispered. Camila didn't resist. She turned and started walking toward the service door. As she passed, she heard someone whisper, "She's braver than all of them." Alejandro stayed where he was, surrounded by guests who no longer knew where to look. His smile was gone completely. He called for another drink, but his hand shook slightly when he raised it. Camila disappeared through the doorway, without looking back. Behind her, the orchestra started playing again, too loud, too cheerful, trying to drown out what had just happened, but no one was really listening anymore. The crowd wasn't ready for what happened next. The orchestra had stopped again, waiting for someone to give a cue, when Alejandro Vega set his drink down and called across the room. "You wanted a show, Miss Torres? Then give us one." Camila turned. She'd stopped a few steps from the door. For a second, she thought about walking away. Then she saw the smirk on his face and the way the people around him waited, half curious, half cruel. She walked back to the center of the floor. "You think this is still a joke?" Alejandro said. "You didn't want to dance earlier. Here's your chance to prove you can do more than talk." Someone in the crowd whispered, "He's not serious." But the man at the piano was already lifting his hands, waiting for a signal. Camila looked at him. "If I dance, you stop humiliating people for fun." Alejandro nodded once, pretending to agree. "Fine. Just don't make me regret giving you the floor." Sophia tried to push through the crowd. "Camila, don't do this," she said under her breath. But Camila had already stepped into the open space. The bandoneon began. The sound filled the room like a heartbeat. Alejandro took her hand without asking. His grip was too tight, the way men hold when they want control. He said quietly, "Follow me." Camila didn't answer. The first few steps were rough. He led fast, trying to throw her off balance, and the crowd leaned in, waiting for her to stumble. But she didn't. She adjusted, kept her posture straight, and when he pulled too hard, she resisted just enough to stay centered. Alejandro forced a smile. "You've done this before." "Once," she said. "A long time ago." He spun her sharply, harder than necessary, trying to make her lose her footing. She caught herself mid-turn and looked straight at him. "Still want to keep going?" she asked. The crowd murmured. Someone near the back whispered, "She's holding her own." Alejandro's jaw tightened. He switched steps, quick and technical, meant to confuse her. She followed every beat. When he pushed, she matched him. When he paused, she waited, eyes locked on his. The music built. It wasn't romantic anymore. It was tense, physical, a fight disguised as dance. He bent closer. "You think you can beat me at this?" "I don't need to beat you," she said. "I just need you to stop pretending you're untouchable." Her voice was calm, but it hit him harder than any movement. He pulled her close, leading faster now, almost reckless. She kept up, breathing steady, every step precise. The people who'd been laughing earlier were silent. Even Sophia stopped moving, caught by the strange, quiet intensity between them. Alejandro tried another spin. This time he lost rhythm for half a second. It was small but visible. A ripple went through the room. Camila didn't exploit it. She just kept moving, letting the music carry her. He leaned close again, out of breath. "Who taught you this?" "My mother," she said softly. He didn't answer. For a brief moment, they moved perfectly in sync. Then the tempo changed. The instruments surged. Alejandro tried to lead another aggressive move, but she reversed it. He stumbled a step back. Gasps filled the room. Camila didn't gloat. She held the rhythm, steady, graceful, completely in control now. Alejandro followed her lead without realizing it. When the final note hit, she stopped first. He froze a moment later, chest heaving. The silence after the music felt heavier than the music itself. No one clapped right away. Then a single pair of hands started, slow but firm. More joined. Within seconds, the applause filled the ballroom. Camila stepped back, breathing hard. Alejandro stood motionless, face flushed. He looked around, but nobody was laughing with him anymore. They were all looking at her. Sophia moved forward, whispering urgently, "Let's go." Camila nodded, turned to Alejandro, and said quietly, "Now you know what it feels like to be the one on display." She walked away as the applause kept rising, passing rows of stunned faces. Alejandro stood alone in the middle of the floor, the sound of clapping echoing around him. And for the first time, he looked like he didn't know what to do next. The ballroom emptied slowly after midnight. The orchestra had already packed up, and the waiters moved quietly through the tables collecting glasses, pretending not to talk about what had just happened. But everyone was talking. Camila stayed near the service door, helping Elena carry trays back to the kitchen. Every few minutes someone would pass by, whisper something, glance at her, and keep walking. She could feel it. The story was already spreading. Sophia came in, her face pale from exhaustion. You should go home. Camila shook her head. I still have work. There's nothing left to do. They're leaving. Camila wiped her hands on a towel and didn't look up. He's still here, isn't he? Sophia sighed. He's in the lounge. Probably trying to convince himself he didn't just get outdanced by one of his employees. Elena tried to lighten the mood. You didn't just outdance him, you buried him. Camila gave a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. That's not what I wanted. What did you want then? Sophia asked quietly. Camila thought for a second. For him to stop looking at people like they're invisible. Sophia leaned against the counter. He won't. Not after tonight. He'll want to prove you wrong. That's how men like him work. Camila looked up. So I'm supposed to hide? I'm saying he's not done with you yet. Before Camila could answer, one of the younger servers ran in from the hallway. They're saying your name out there, he blurted. Some journalist from a magazine is asking who you are. Sophia cursed under her breath. Wonderful. Camila blinked. A journalist? Elena asked. What would they even write? The boy hesitated. Something about the Tango girl who embarrassed Alejandro Vega in his own hotel. Camila froze. Already, it's all over social media, he said. Somebody uploaded the video while it was happening. Sophia closed her eyes for a second, then said, Camila, go home now. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer any messages. Just stay quiet until this dies down. Camila didn't move. And if it doesn't, Sophia's tone softened. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. But please, go before someone decides to make this worse. Camila untied her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. I didn't plan any of this. I know, Sophia said, but it's happening anyway. Camila walked toward the back door. Elena followed her partway. You did nothing wrong. You know that, right? Camila nodded. I know, but it doesn't matter right now. She pushed the door open and stepped into the cool night air. The street outside was quiet except for the sound of a few cars. She took a deep breath, finally alone. Inside, in the emptying ballroom, the conversations kept circling around the same few lines. Did you see the way she moved? She must have had training. She looked like she knew exactly what she was doing. And then, from the far corner, an older man, Eduardo Ramos, an art critic who hadn't written in years, spoke up. She dances like someone I used to know. A woman nearby asked too. He frowned, trying to remember. Isabel Torres. She was extraordinary. There was something in the way she held her balance, the control, the precision. That girl out there, she has the same posture. People looked at him, curious. You think she's related? Eduardo nodded slowly. Maybe her daughter. It's been 20 years, but that kind of movement doesn't come from nowhere. The group around him fell silent, suddenly less amused. Someone whispered, if that's true, then tonight was something else entirely. Across the room, Alejandro Vega sat at the bar with his tie undone, his glass untouched. His reflection stared back from the mirror behind the bottles, sweat on his neck, his jaw tight. He'd told everyone he didn't care, that it was just a joke gone too far. But deep down, he knew what it really was. He'd lost control, and everyone had seen it. One of his friends sat down beside him. You should leave, man. People are saying things. Let them talk, Alejandro said quietly. They'll move on. I don't think they will. Alejandro looked at him. Why not? His friend hesitated. Because she wasn't like the others. You could feel it. The way she looked at you, it wasn't fear. Alejandro didn't respond. He stared at the empty glass and finally said, Find out who she is. What for? I want to know where she learned to dance like that. The friend nodded and walked away. Alejandro stayed at the bar, replaying the image in his head. Her eyes steady, her hand firm, every movement precise. He'd meant to humiliate her, and instead, she'd turned him into the fool. Meanwhile, outside, Camila walked down the empty street toward the bus stop, her heels clicking against the pavement. She passed a digital billboard flashing headlines about the event still going on inside the hotel. She didn't look up, but she already knew, whatever happened next, she wasn't invisible anymore. By the next morning, the video had been shared thousands of times. Every angle, every second of the dance, replayed with captions like the waitress who humbled Alejandro Vega and Tango of the Year. The hotel's PR department spent the entire morning trying to contact news outlets, asking them to take it down. It didn't matter. Once something was out there, it lived on its own. Camila's phone buzzed nonstop. Unknown numbers. Journalists. Messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. She ignored them all. She sat in the small kitchen of her apartment, drinking coffee that had gone cold, watching sunlight crawl across the tiled floor. Elena had called twice already, telling her to stay home. Sophia had left a voicemail. Please, don't speak to anyone. I'm trying to keep your job safe. She didn't answer. A knock came at the door around noon. She hesitated, then opened it slightly. Eduardo Ramos stood there, older than she remembered seeing him years ago at the theater, but still recognizable. The sharp eyes, the slow, deliberate way of speaking. Miss Torres, he said gently, I'm sorry to come without notice. Camila blinked. How did you find me? He smiled faintly. You were not difficult to find this morning. He stepped inside when she nodded. I saw the video. The way you danced. It reminded me of someone I once knew very well. Camila didn't answer. He studied her for a moment. Your mother's name was Isabel, wasn't it? Her breath caught. How do you know that? I reviewed her last performance in Buenos Aires, he said. It was the first time I ever wrote the word transcendent in a column. Camila lowered her eyes. She died a long time ago. I know. I was there the night she collapsed on stage. I never forgot her. She said quietly, I didn't want anyone to know who I was. That's why I stopped dancing. And yet, he said, you danced again. You didn't plan to, but you did. That kind of instinct doesn't disappear. Camila sat down, rubbing her hands together. Now it's everywhere. My face, my name. I didn't ask for this. I don't think you could have avoided it, Eduardo said. People needed to see what dignity looks like when it fights back. That's why it spread. She shook her head. No, they're watching because they want a story to gossip about. He looked at her with quiet sympathy. Maybe at first, but when they watch again, they'll see more than that. You reminded them of what art looks like when it's honest. Camila didn't answer. She stared at the window, where the sunlight flickered through the blinds. Eduardo stood to leave. There's a press conference tonight. Vega's company is making a statement. You should stay away from it. I don't care what he says. You should, he said, pausing at the door. Men like him don't like losing in public. They rewrite the story until it makes them the hero again. After he left, Camila sat for a long time without moving. Across the city, Alejandro Vega was in his office on the top floor of the same hotel. His assistant scrolled through articles on a tablet, reading headlines out loud. Alejandro Vega, humiliated by hotel staff during gala. He hesitated before reading the next one. The unknown dancer who silenced Madrid's elite. Alejandro waved him off. Enough. She hasn't spoken to the press, the assistant added. Everyone wants an interview. I don't care what she says, Alejandro replied. Find out where she learned to dance like that. We already did. Her mother was Isabel Torres, famous in Argentina. Died when Camila was 8. Alejandro leaned back in his chair. Isabel Torres, the dancer from Teatro Colón? Yes. He went silent for a moment. That explains it. Should I release a statement? The assistant asked. Alejandro nodded slowly. Yes. Something simple. Say the event was misinterpreted, that it was all a misunderstanding. Keep it polite. The assistant hesitated. Sir, that won't stop people from talking. It's not about stopping them, Alejandro said. It's about reminding them I'm still the one with a microphone. Later that afternoon, Camila's phone lit up again. A message from Sophia. He's going live on TV tonight. Don't watch it. It'll only make you angry. Camila put the phone face down. She already knew she'd watch. When night came, she sat on the edge of her couch as the news anchor introduced Alejandro Vega. He looked composed, confident, every word rehearsed. Last night's event has been taken out of context, he said smoothly. There was no insult intended. I admire the young woman's talent and hope the public doesn't twist what was meant to be a moment of lighthearted fun. Camila stared at the screen, jaw tight. Lighthearted fun. He smiled for the cameras, calm and untouchable again. But even as he spoke, the live comment section below the broadcast filled with messages. He's lying. She humiliated him fair and square. We saw the video. He's trying to save face. For the first time since the gala, Camila smiled. Not out of pride, but because she realized he couldn't bury the truth this time. The story had grown beyond both of them, and it was only beginning. Camila didn't expect him to show up in person. She thought if Alejandro Vega ever reached out, it would be through lawyers, PR people, or some carefully worded letter that sounded polite but meant nothing. But 3 days after the broadcast, there he was, standing outside the cafe where she worked the morning shift. It was early, barely 9, the kind of quiet hour when the smell of coffee still overpowered the noise of the city. Camila was wiping tables near the window when she saw him step out of a black car, wearing dark sunglasses, trying too hard to look casual. Her stomach tightened. She told herself not to react. She went back to cleaning, pretending she hadn't seen him. The bell over the door chimed. The few customers inside turned their heads. Alejandro walked in like a man who'd rehearsed it, hands in his pockets, calm, almost polite. "Morning," he said. Camila looked up. "You shouldn't be here." He took off his sunglasses. "I just want to talk. I don't think we have anything to talk about." "Then just listen," he said. 2 minutes. She hesitated, then nodded toward an empty table by the window. "Fine. 2 minutes." He sat down, leaning forward slightly. "I didn't come here to argue. I came to apologize." Camila crossed her arms. "On camera or off?" He frowned. "Off. I'm not stupid. You just think the world revolves around you," she said quietly. He let out a slow breath. "Look, what happened that night?" "You mean the night you turned a human being into a punchline?" He winced, but didn't interrupt. "I thought it was harmless." "Stupid, maybe, but harmless." "It wasn't. I know that now." Camila studied him for a moment. "No, you don't. You're here because people saw what you did. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry they watched." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Maybe you're right," he said finally, "but I'm still here. That doesn't fix anything. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to understand it." Camila frowned. "Understand what?" "How someone like you walks into a room full of people who think they're gods and makes them see themselves for what they are. I've spent 3 days watching that video, trying to figure out what happened. You didn't just dance. You took control of the room. That wasn't the plan. It worked anyway." She didn't respond. The silence stretched. Outside, traffic moved slowly through the morning sun. Finally, he said, "I know who your mother was." Camila's eyes snapped to him. "You did your research." "I had to. People kept asking questions. I needed to know who I'd insulted." "You didn't insult my mother," she said. "You insulted me." "I know," he said, "but now I know where that strength came from." Camila shook her head. "You still don't get it. My mother didn't raise me to be strong. She raised me to have limits. To walk away when people like you forget theirs." He looked down at the table. "You've made your point. I didn't say it for you." He looked back up. "Then for who?" "For me. I spent too many years letting people talk to me however they wanted. That night wasn't about you. It was about me deciding to stop being quiet." He leaned back, nodding slowly. "You know they're still talking about you, right? There's a dozen offers waiting for you. Interviews, performances, sponsorships. I'm not interested." He looked genuinely surprised. "Why not? You could build a career off this." "I don't want to build anything out of humiliation, even if it's yours." That shut him up for a while. Finally, he said, "You really think I can't change?" "I think you'll try for a while," she said. "Then one day, when no one's looking, you'll go back to who you were. Because change isn't about fixing an image, it's about losing control. And I don't think you're ready for that." Alejandro stared at her like he'd been hit with something he couldn't block. After a long pause, he stood up. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "But I'm trying." "Then try somewhere else." He nodded once, slipped his sunglasses back on, and left without another word. Camila stood still for a moment, staring out the window as his car disappeared down the street. Then she went back behind the counter, picked up a coffee cup, and kept working. Elena came in from the back, whispering, "Was that really him?" Camila nodded. "What did he want?" "Closure, I think." She looked at the cup in her hand. "But some things don't close." Elena leaned against the counter. "You okay?" Camila thought about it. "I think I am." For the first time in a long time, she meant it. The headlines didn't slow down. By the end of the week, every news site had a different version of the same story. The billionaire and the waitress, the tango that shook Madrid from humiliation to fame. Camila hated all of them. She stayed off her phone, avoided interviews, and worked double shifts at the cafe to keep herself busy. It didn't help. Reporters showed up anyway, pretending to be customers, ordering coffee they didn't drink. Elena handled most of them. She's not giving statements, she'd say, over and over, until they left. Sophia called one night just before closing. "He's in trouble," she said quietly. Camilo wiped down a table. "Ooh, Alejandro. Vega Group's stocks dropped 8% today. 2 sponsors pulled out of his foundation." Camila didn't react. "That's not my problem." "I know, but I thought you should hear it from me before you see it on the news." Camila kept cleaning. "They'll blame me eventually." Sophia sighed. "Probably. That's how this works. People always turn on the woman first." Camila leaned on the counter, tired. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted him to stop." "Doesn't matter what you wanted," Sophia said softly. "Once something hits the internet, it doesn't belong to you anymore." The next morning, Alejandro Vega sat in his office again. Same seat, different energy. The blinds were half closed, the room filled with the noise of phones ringing and assistants whispering outside the door. His publicist, Marco, stood by the window with a folder full of papers. "You're losing control of the story. She's not talking, which means everyone else is." Alejandro rubbed his forehead. "Then make her talk." Marco hesitated. "We can't threaten her. Not after the video. That would kill what's left of your image." Alejandro exhaled, frustrated. "Then what do you suggest? An interview? With you? Alone? Be human for once. Stop pretending it didn't happen." "I already apologized." "No," Marco said. "You made a statement. There's a difference." Alejandro stared at the floor, then finally said, "Set it up." Later that day, the announcement hit social media. Alejandro Vega speaks for the first time about the Tango incident. Exclusive interview tonight. Camila saw it on the cafe's TV while wiping tables. She turned away from the screen, but Elena said, "You should probably watch it." Camila shook her head. "I already know how it'll go. He'll sound sincere, he'll talk about pressure, about misunderstanding, and by tomorrow, people will forgive him." Elena sighed. "And you?" "I'll still be the girl who made him look bad." At 8 p.m., the interview began. Alejandro sat across from a journalist in a quiet studio. No champagne, no crowd, no orchestra, just 2 chairs and a camera. He looked different, tired. His voice was calm. "What happened that night was wrong. I let arrogance get the better of me. I thought I could make people laugh and forgot there was a person on the other side of the joke." The interviewer nodded. "And what about her? Have you spoken to Miss Torres since then?" Alejandro hesitated. "Yes, I visited her. She didn't want to hear what I had to say." "Did she accept your apology?" "I don't know, but she didn't need to. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about me realizing I wasn't the man I thought I was." Camila watched from her apartment. The words sounded good, practiced, clean, but there was a small pause near the end, a tiny crack in his voice that made her stop reaching for the remote. Maybe for once he wasn't performing. The interviewer continued. "You've lost investors, endorsements, credibility. Was it worth it?" Alejandro smiled faintly. "It was necessary. Sometimes you need to lose everything before you understand what power does to you." The video ended with a close-up of his face, not the charming businessman, not the man from the ballroom, just a man who looked tired of pretending. Elena texted her 10 minutes later. "He did better than I expected." Camila replied, "Doesn't change anything." She turned off the TV and sat in silence. The city outside was alive, cars, laughter, music. She wasn't sure if she pitied him or simply didn't care anymore. Maybe both. A few days later, the cafe was quieter again. No cameras, no reporters. People had moved on to the next scandal. Elena leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. "They're calling you the Tango girl now, like some kind of myth." Camila smiled tiredly. "Let them. It's better than being invisible." Elena looked up. "You ever think about dancing again? For real, I mean." Camila thought about it. The memory of her mother's voice came back, soft, tired, but full of love. "Dance with your heart, not your feet." "I might," she said finally, "but this time on my terms." Outside, the city lights flickered against the cafe window. For the first time since that night, Camila felt something close to peace. Not victory, not revenge, just the quiet relief of knowing she had nothing left to prove. 2 weeks later, the cafe felt normal again. The morning crowd returned. Office workers ordering the same coffees, students tapping on laptops, the regular who always asked for too much sugar. For once, no one whispered when Camila walked past. She liked that. She liked being ordinary again. Then Sophia showed up. It was almost noon, sunlight spilling across the counter. She looked different, rested, determined, holding an envelope in her hand. "Please tell me that's not another journalist," Camila said. Sophia smiled. "No, this one's real." She slid the envelope across the table. "It came to the hotel this morning, addressed to you." Camila hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single page on thick paper. Official letterhead from the Madrid Cultural Foundation. "We cordially invite Ms. Camila Torres to perform at the annual Heritage Gala as a featured tango artist." Camila blinked. "This is a mistake." Sophia shook her head. "No mistake. They saw the video, they found out who your mother was, and now they want you on that stage. You'd be paid well, and it's legitimate, no publicity stunts." Camila set the letter down. "I don't want to be a headline again." "This isn't about headlines," Sophia said gently. "This is about you. You said you'd only dance again on your terms. Maybe this is it." Camila didn't answer. Across town, Alejandro Vega was sitting in his penthouse office, a man half his staff now avoided. His company was recovering slowly, but he wasn't the same. He worked quieter, listened more, and for the first time, people spoke honestly around him. Marco, his publicist, entered the room with a tablet. "You've been invited to the Heritage Gala as well," he said. "They're honoring philanthropists this year. You're on the list." Alejandro nodded, distracted. "Who's performing?" Marco hesitated. "Camila Torres." Alejandro looked up. "You're joking." "No." Apparently, she accepted. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Good. Marco asked, surprised. Alejandro nodded. "She deserves it." For the next week, Camila avoided thinking about it. She focused on work, but the thought lingered in her head. Her name on that program, the same city where her mother once danced. Elena teased her constantly. "You're going to do it, right? Don't even pretend you're not." "I don't know," Camila said. "I haven't danced on a stage since she died." Elena shrugged. "Then do it for her." That night, Camila went home and found the old shoebox she hadn't touched in years. Inside were faded photos. Her mother smiling in front of the theater, the two of them in a courtyard, her tiny hands holding a pair of dance shoes far too big for her. She sat there for a long time, staring at the past she'd tried to bury. Finally, she whispered, "Okay, Mama, one last dance." The night of the gala came faster than she expected. The venue wasn't as extravagant as Vega's ballroom, but had the same polished marble, the same crowd of polished people. Only this time, she wasn't serving drinks. She was walking in as the performer. Sophia met her backstage, helping her fix her hair. "You ready?" Camila smiled faintly. "No, but I'm here." On the other side of the stage, Alejandro arrived quietly. He didn't sit in the front row. He stayed near the back, trying not to be noticed. When he saw her name appear on the program, something in his chest tightened. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice filled the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's featured performer, Camila Torres." Applause rose. Camila stepped into the light. The music began, a slow, aching bandoneon, just like that night. But this time, there was no audience of mockery, no laughter, no arrogance. Just music and her mother's memory somewhere in the rhythm. She danced simply, no theatrics, no sharp turns to impress. Every movement was clean, honest, full of quiet control. The room went completely still. When the music ended, the applause was immediate and thunderous. Not the applause of surprise or gossip, something deeper. Alejandro stood in the back, clapping softly. For the first time, it wasn't guilt that filled him. It was respect. Afterward, as guests crowded around her backstage, Sophia guided her toward a quieter hallway. That's when she saw him waiting near the exit. He didn't say anything at first. Neither did she. Finally, Alejandro said, "You were incredible." Camila nodded. Thank you. I mean it, he said. No cameras this time. No stage tricks. Just truth. That's the only way I know how to dance. He smiled faintly. I didn't come to bother you. I just wanted to see it once without ruining it. She looked at him for a long moment. Then I'm glad you came. He nodded, stepped aside, and let her pass. As she walked past him toward the night air, he said quietly, For what it's worth, you changed something in me. Camila stopped. Then make sure it lasts. And she left. Outside, the city lights glimmered across the plaza. She breathed in, the music still alive somewhere inside her. This time, the applause wasn't humiliation, it was freedom. 3 months passed. The video stopped trending, new scandals replaced old ones, and the city went back to being loud and busy. But for Camila Torres, everything had changed quietly. The cafe still smelled like roasted beans and warm pastries, but now people sometimes recognized her. Not with phones or questions, just a look of quiet acknowledgement, like they knew something about her story but chose to let her be. She liked it that way. Elena poured 2 coffees and sat down beside her during a slow afternoon. So what's next? Camila smiled faintly. Next? Yeah, you can't stay here forever. People want to see you dance again. There's talk about the foundation offering you a residency. Camila looked down at her cup. I don't want fame, Elena. I just want to dance when it feels right. That's the difference, Elena said. The ones chasing fame don't last. The ones chasing peace usually find it. Camila laughed softly. Peace sounds boring. After what you've been through, boring might be nice. Across town, Alejandro Vega was living a quieter life too. The hotel still bore his name, but he'd stepped down from public management. He let the board handle appearances while he worked behind the scenes. Fewer cameras, more time. Marco, his longtime publicist, stopped by one morning. You're hard to reach these days. Alejandro shrugged. That's the point. Marco set a newspaper on the desk. The front page showed a photo from the Heritage Gala, Camila mid-dance, her expression calm and fierce. The headline read, The Return of Grace. She's teaching now, Marco said. Small studio downtown. They say she doesn't charge people who can't pay. Alejandro glanced at the photo for a moment, then folded the paper neatly. Good for her. You're not going to reach out? No. I already said what I needed to. Marco studied him. You really did change. Alejandro smiled slightly. I just stopped pretending I hadn't been wrong. Turns out, that takes most of the effort. That afternoon, Camila finished her shift and walked to a small dance studio 2 blocks from her apartment. Wasn't much, just mirrors, wooden floors, and old speakers, but it was hers. 10 students waited, a mix of teenagers and adults, nervous and excited. She clapped her hands together. All right, she said, smiling. Let's start. The music played, slow at first. She watched their movements, awkward, uncertain, but she didn't correct them right away. She wanted them to feel it first, not perform it. When the class ended, one of the younger students stayed behind. Miss Torres? Yes. Is it true you used to work at a hotel before you danced? Camila nodded. Yes. And someone tried to humiliate you? Camila paused. Someone did. But I learned something that night. What? That no one can make you small if you don't let them. The girl smiled shyly and left. Camila turned off the lights and sat on the edge of the floor, looking at her reflection in the darkened mirror. Her mother's voice drifted somewhere in memory. Dance with your heart, not your feet. She finally understood what that meant. Later that week, Sophia stopped by with flowers. The foundation wants you to perform again next year, she said. Camila shook her head. Maybe, but only if it's for something real. Sophia smiled. You sound just like your mother. Camila tilted her head. Did you know her? Once, Sophia said. She came to the hotel years ago. Same eyes, same way of speaking. You carry her in everything you do. Camila didn't say anything. She just smiled, quietly grateful. One evening near closing time, when she was locking up the studio, a black car parked across the street. Alejandro got out. No cameras, no entourage, just him. He didn't cross immediately. He waited until she looked up and saw him. Camila hesitated, then walked to the door and opened it halfway. You're persistent. He gave a small nod. I just wanted to see the place. It's not much. It's honest, he said. They stood there for a moment, neither sure what else to say. Finally, Alejandro added, I'm helping fund a youth arts program. Thought you might want in. She crossed her arms. Because you owe me? No, he said. Because it's the right thing to do. Camila studied him. There was no arrogance this time, no mask. Just a man trying to make something better. All right, she said after a pause. Send me the details. He smiled. I will. She stepped back. Good night, Mr. Vega. Good night, Miss Torres. He turned and left. She watched him go, then looked back at the studio lights flickering inside. For once, she didn't feel anger or victory, just balance. The next morning, when she opened the studio again, sunlight hit the mirror just right, filling the room with gold. She pressed play on the old speaker and let the music start. No crowd, no judgment, just rhythm, memory, and peace. And for the first time since that night, she danced again. Not for survival, not for defiance, but because she wanted to. A year later, the night of the gala was just another story people told when they ran out of new ones. It lived online, clipped and edited, but time had dulled its edges. For most, it was old news. For the two people at the center of it, it was the start of something different. Camila Torres still ran her small studio on Calle del Sol. The mirrors were cleaner now, the walls painted fresh white, and the floor carried the soft marks of hundreds of hours of practice. Her students came from all kinds of places, servers, students, retirees, anyone who wanted to move again after life had worn them down. She never charged more than people could afford. When they offered to pay extra, she always said, just show up next week. The Foundation's youth program had become a quiet success. Once a month, they let her use a bigger space for community lessons. Alejandro Vega funded most of it, but never attached his name. He showed up only when asked. No cameras, no speeches. The first time he visited the studio, he stayed by the door, watching a group of teenagers try their first tango steps. He didn't say a word until the class ended. Then he told Camila, you built something good. She smiled. So did you. You just used to build the wrong kind of things. He chuckled. Still learning. They didn't meet often after that. Every few months, maybe when projects overlapped. Their conversations were short, practical, respectful. Whatever tension once existed had turned into a quiet understanding neither of them needed to name. Alejandro's life had shifted too. He'd sold part of the Vega Group to a smaller firm, started spending time away from Madrid, even learned to live without an assistant for a while. Marco said it was strange to see him reading newspapers instead of being in them. When people asked why he'd stepped back, he always said the same thing. Because I finally realized noise isn't the same as meaning. In late spring, a local newspaper did a small feature on Camila's studio. Nothing sensational, just a few photos and a line that read, "A woman teaching dignity through dance." She cut out the article and taped it near the mirror, not for pride, but as a reminder of what survival looked like when it found peace. One afternoon, she stayed late after class. The room was empty, warm, filled with the faint echo of the last song. She turned on the music again and started to dance, slow, patient, no audience. Halfway through, she stopped and looked toward the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the street, and she thought of her mother. She whispered, "I'm still dancing, Mama." Meanwhile, in a quiet office overlooking the same city, Alejandro was finishing a call with the foundation board. They'd approved another year of funding for the youth program. Before hanging up, he said, "Make sure Miss Torres gets everything she needs." That night, he walked past her studio on his way home. He didn't go in. He saw her through the window, alone, moving with calm precision, no spotlight, no crowd. And he smiled. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was gratitude. Camila didn't see him. She just kept dancing, lost in rhythm, the way her mother taught her. When the song ended, she stood still for a moment, catching her breath, the city lights flickering outside. She wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. But she was free. And sometimes, freedom is the only victory worth keeping.